Welcome back, everybody, to Left Reckoning. David Griscom here, joined as always by Matt Leck.
Yo.
We have a very important story to get to today. We're going to shed some light on what's been happening in Brownsville, Texas, surrounding SpaceX, some really, really egregious overreach by the local government there. But before we get to all of that, I'd like to introduce our guest. Bekah Hinojosa is a community organizer and environmental activist out of Brownsville, Texas. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm really happy that you're able to speak to us. And I'm sorry, and I hope that you're able to recover after this really egregious event that happened, down in Brownsville, Texas. Could you just take people through what happened on February 16th to you?
Sure. Well, I was, at home. It was the morning. I was in my pajamas still, and I hear a loud knock on the door of my apartment. And I think, oh, it's just package delivery. I order a lot of packages, and I see just a swarm of men, through the peephole, and they're loud. They're still knocking pretty loudly. And I open the door a crack, and they tell me it's Brownsville Police Department. And, they won't tell me what it's about. And I ask them for a warrant, and they just put the door open, and immediately they're in my apartment. They grab me, put my hands behind my back, and I beg them, let me get dressed. I'm in my pajamas, please. And they're still holding on to me. They won't let me go. And I see my shoes pretty nearby me in the living room, and I try to, edge my body towards my shoes so I can at least put my shoes on. I'm like, please let me put my shoes on. And the police officer says, we're going to charge you with resisting arrest if you try to grab your shoes. So at that point, I just stop. I stop moving. I don't know what what they're planning to charge me with. I don't know what this is about. Another police officer comes into my apartment, and I beg him. I was like, please just grab my shoes for me, please, so I can put them on. Just grab them. And he finally picks up my shoes. So I'm barefoot. I'm in my very thin pajamas. All I have are my glasses on my face. They put me in handcuffs and take me to the police car. And I see about, I think it's 4 officers, maybe even more. I see 2 officers looking into the windows of my car. I see another one still standing next to my front door, which is open, which means that, the police had full access to my apartment. I live alone. There was no one else there. I was worried about my cat who was inside by himself. And they put me in the back of the police car, and then they take me downtown to the police department and put me in city jail. They take my mugshot, my fingerprints, and a female guard puts me in the cell, and then she asks me to turn around, and she pulls my glasses off my face and tells me, you don't need to read anything in there.
Oh my God.
And my vision is terrible. Like I need glasses to do anything, to brush my teeth. I can't even read like the police department, like the police officers' name tags. I don't even know who I'm talking to in the police department. So I'm just sitting there with really impaired vision in my thin pajamas in a cold jail cell by myself. And no one knows I'm there. None of my friends or family. And then, I finally get my one free phone call. I call my dad. I tell my dad to call my other family members, let them know I'm in jail, try to get me out.
At this point, had you been told anything about what they were charging you with, or were you still completely in the dark?
Well, they had a detective, 2 detectives interrogate me in a conference room in the police department. And they, at that point, tell me that I'm being charged with a Class B misdemeanor for graffiti. And they're
Jesus
trying to
Christ.
show me pictures and documents. They're trying to get me to sign a document, and I can't see anything because they won't give me back my glasses for this interrogation. And I tell them, sir, I can't see what you're saying. And at this point, I'm feeling kind of dizzy, just from straining to see. And the detective, go ahead. And the detective starts to tell me, I know you're part of organizations, and how do you think your job is going to feel about this?
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and I just want to note here that that's not the typical for any sort of incident like that. You don't see cops going and frog marching people out of their apartments. Typically, it's a citation. This is the sort of thing you hear about in Singapore or something like that, right? But that's just a technical note about these things in general.
Right.
And how long were you held there?
Roughly 26 hours. So I had to spend the night in jail, which I didn't sleep at all. I was just on, very alert. It was too cold to sleep in there. There was bright fluorescent lights. They never dimmed the lights. And I was just terrified of even the thought of sleeping in jail. Police, there's a history of police brutality along the border. I don't feel comfortable going to sleep.
Yeah, and they've already been aggressive in removing your glasses. Like, that's such attack. Maybe that's a common thing in police departments. If so, it's commonplace abuse. That's horrible.
And and this story would be horrific enough on its own. But when you're let out, you come to find that the mayor has been paying quite a bit of attention to you and to this, again, alleged graffiti.
Right. So I finally get out of jail. I get a ride from my cousin. I get back to my apartment. I didn't even know if my apartment door was locked or wide open. Yeah. Luckily, my cousin had a spare, and I told her to bring the spare key just in case. And luckily, I had food and everything, already there in the apartment for my cat, so I knew he was okay. So I get home, and I'm in my pajamas covered in jail dirt that I couldn't even see in the cell because I couldn't see anything. And then I started getting all these text messages, missed calls on my phone, looking at my phone, and then a friend texts me that the mayor has publicly announced my arrest on his official social media platform. And he posts my job, and in the posting on Facebook, he says he went to LinkedIn and found my job. And he also posts that I'm frequently quoted as being anti-SpaceX in articles. And this is still alleged, right? I haven't had to plea. And he's already, he's doxing me.
No, I mean, this is just extra. I mean, this is extraordinary too. First of all, one for a mayor in almost any kind of case, first, like of this level, Class B misdemeanor, but pretty much any kind of, case where the police department is already involved, for the mayor to be publicly commenting on something like this is absolutely ridiculous. And on top of it, acting as if, you having an opinion about a very, very major political and economic factor in your community somehow, implies some level of like guilt or wickedness on your part. I mean, it's really egregious.
Exactly. Immediately, like people just start commenting, saying, why are you posting her job on here? There were some reporters who have scrolled back through his Facebook like the last 2 years, and he's never posted anyone else's mugshot or personal information of anyone else that's been arrested in the city of Brownsville. So I was very clearly singled out and targeted by the mayor because he is, in the pocket of SpaceX and wants to quash SpaceX dissent.
I mean,
So-
that's such a scary element to this. It's coordination, right? There's an intelligence operation to this, where that detective comes in and like talks about your associations with activist groups, right? Like they have some kind of intelligence apparatus going on with SpaceX. That's what this looks like to me.
Yeah, and let's just share this really quick so everyone can be on the same page now. People should definitely read this piece in Texas Observer by Gus Bova, who interviewed and talked with Bekah about this. If you see here, here's a picture of the mural and this, bit of writing on it that got the police department and the mayor all worked up here, which I believe has now been painted over. I mean, it was painted over in the matter of hours or days. People should spend some time reading that piece for the full breakdown of the case here. But this reaction from the state, and that's what it is, right? This is the government using like the police, which are the armed agents of the state, to harass people. To publicly, condemn and get worked up about something that is like, frankly, like a pretty non-factor amount of like graffiti or something like that in the first place is ridiculous. But this mural, right, is it's a public, it's on a publicly owned building, is it not?
So this is city property. The mural is, Elon Musk Foundation money that was given to the city of Brownsville to paint 3 murals in town. 2 of them have been painted. This was the first one that was painted. There's been cry about this mural for months. People have been refer to it as a gentrified eyesore.
I would agree with that categorization, frankly.
Yeah. Well, like a soulless use of art, just like a company's foundation comes in to like like BTX, I assume means Brownsville, Texas.
No one calls Brownsville BTX.
They call Austin ATX,
Very
right?
Intentional.
Yeah.
Right. So it's very intentional rebranding of Brownsville, of downtown Brownsville, to attract SpaceX employees and tourists. The mayor has posted on his own Instagram that this mural is not for the community. It's to appeal to SpaceX people.
So let's zoom out here and we'll come back to talk about the mayor and the case a little bit towards the end. But this is all happening in a very specific context in Brownsville. And, people who watch the show are familiar. Matt and I cover a lot of what Elon Musk has been up to. We spent a whole episode last week talking about this really horrific, lawsuit against him and his company for just extreme racism is the only way really to categorize it. If it was only that this person was sort of like an annoying media figure, that'd be one thing. But this is actually starting to step into the area of actually harming communities, displacing people. And in this case right here, I mean, we don't know what these kind of, behind the scenes relationships are like. But there certainly is a kind of feeling, at least from the government and the current mayor of Brownsville, that, any kind of public criticism of SpaceX is not only unwelcome by the government there, but they're going to, pursue and try to make examples of people who are involved in it. I mean, Bekah, could you help people understand sort of, SpaceX and its relationship to Brownsville, what this move has meant for people in the city, how the community feels about it. And we can get into some other facts that I have, I brought with me later.
I mean, our rent in Brownsville is going up. Everyone I know in Brownsville in the last year has seen their rent go up pretty high. And, real estate companies here, real estate agents, all of their listings for this region, they post perfect for a SpaceX employee. So it's very clear who they want to prioritize moving into this area. There was a gentleman with like a real estate association in South Padre Island who says there's pretty much no property or houses for people to buy, and most of them have been bought up by SpaceX employees. So we're just seeing, a rapid change to our coastline because of SpaceX, from within the last 2 to 3 years, just things, rent go up, explosions happening.
Yeah, could you talk about Starbase for us?
Yeah, Starbase.
Sure.
There we go.
I mean, SpaceX, just in a matter of 3 years, is rapidly expanding, and Elon Musk is trying to incorporate Brownsville's beach to create his own billionaire city called Starbase, Texas. And this is the poor people's beach. This is where local people from our community, brown people, indigenous people, people of color, go to fish, to feed their families, to go and recreate, and not have to worry about paying high fees like they would at, say, South Padre Island. You know, this, for many people, like, this is our vacation, is going to our own coastline. That's a vacation for many of our families.
And, you know, the thing is that, I mean, could you paint a picture for people of, you know, what Brownsville's like, the people who have been in Brownsville for a while, the working people there? Because one thing that's really notable about SpaceX and a lot of, not just Musk's companies, but a lot of these big tech companies that are moving into communities, you know, they promise a lot of jobs for folks. But really what that ends up meaning is that there's just mass displacement, and like maybe there are jobs for people, but they're people who weren't living in that community, you know, a year ago, 2 years ago. They're people who are being, you know, brought in from California, wherever else. You know, could you give people an understanding of, you know, what the kind of community in Brownsville is like?
SpaceX is giving us the same broken promise, claiming that they'll bring jobs to local people, which is quickly, you know, disproven. Elon Musk went on his own social media platform on Twitter and told people, please, people, move to Brownsville and South Padre Island and work for SpaceX. So clearly he wants, you know, outsiders to come here, that, you know, these aren't going to employment for local people. And then when you look at the fine print of, you know, the permit applications, the license applications SpaceX submits to, you know, the FAA, it says in there, you know, 450 new jobs for the SpaceX expansion. But, you know, those jobs are for this income, and, you know, a majority income level in Brownsville and the Rio Grande Valley region is not that income level. So very clearly, like, jobs aren't for our people. And then we need to talk about what good jobs looks like, right? An industry that's damaging our coastline, that is trying to actually drill for gas on the beach for rocket fuel, that is exploding rocket parts into like the South Padre Island jetties and into our communities and displacing people from the beach in their homes. That doesn't sound like good jobs, or even definitely not unionized jobs.
Certainly that, and also, you know, I mean, there's a kind of lack of care for the community, the people, and the environment. Let me read a quote from Elon Musk to just remind people what this guy thinks about Brownsville. In 2018, describing Brownsville in an interview with Esquire, Musk said, "We've got a lot of land with nobody around, and so if a rocket blows up, it's cool." I mean, would you agree with that kind of description of Brownsville and the beaches around you?
Absolutely not. And in fact, I would call that racist to say that our people don't even count as people, that we're not there in his eyes, and that it's okay to blow things up. It's not okay.
Yeah, and you know, and again, people like, you know, we've done some deeper dives into you know, some of the things that have been going on with SpaceX. But could you describe for people too that, like, you know, there's the economic and displacement aspect of this, and then there's the environmental aspect, and then there's the safety one, right? And that's one that I would imagine, just as a member of a community or democracy, you know, and at least in name, should be something that's a major concern for people. But he was able to carve out protections for himself, if I recall correctly. You know, so that they could shut down state parks, state beaches, you know, so that he could do rocket launches, you know, and basically people are sort of told that they, you know, can't be out in certain areas where people tend to frequent, until Elon Musk and his friends, you know, get finished blowing shit up in the air. Right.
So Boca Chica Beach was never for sale. It is a state park. That is wildlife refuge. You know, the community should have access to the beach. Politicians here are actively selling a beach that was never for sale. And our former state rep, Renee Olivera, was the one that pushed that bill through the Texas state ledge to allow SpaceX to excessively close the beach. And he, got voted out of office, and conveniently was an attorney representing SpaceX in one of the lawsuits against a family that suffered a fatal car accident because of SpaceX. So, just the revolving doors of, a politician who pushed something for SpaceX and is now profiting from SpaceX.
Mm. Well, I mean, because this is the kind of reality here, and this is my opinion. But certainly I can imagine that the mayor of Brownsville sort of wants to participate in those kind of relationships, right? There's a kind of willingness to open up and give special exception for this person and this company in ways that aren't really beneficial to the community, but certainly might be able to make a lot of money for SpaceX and those around Elon Musk.
Yeah, absolutely. Brownsville has made so many partnerships with space industry companies just in the last 2 years, like 4 or 5. Local community members have submitted public info requests, and the city has fought really hard to block all of those info requests. So there's just little to no transparency of what kind of space partnerships that the city is pushing for, really making. So, Mayor Mendez even went so far as to change the city's tagline from on the border by the sea to on the border by the sea and beyond. So, he's really pushing space rebranding for our city fast between these partnerships, between murals downtown, and changing the city's tagline.
Can you talk a little bit about as an active or as a community organizer, what the morale is like in the face of all this, and also touch on a little bit, how you personally are dealing with basically like a show of force by the police department and mayor.
Yeah, local people are speaking up. There's right now some conservation groups that are demanding a full EIS, a full environmental impact study of all the impacts we face from SpaceX. There's an active lawsuit against the county and the Texas GLO around the excessive beach closures. People have been speaking out to news media for years. We've been demanding town halls from the city. People have been making public comments, and they've just been flat out ignored. So, it doesn't surprise me that someone or several people or whoever, went and, wrote their message beneath that BTX mural. Maybe they see it as a giant public comment form message that the city and county officials will finally read and respond to.
It seems to be the only thing they'll be paying attention to, yeah.
But it does make speaking out against SpaceX is clearly making it difficult to be a member of this community.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I
haven't seen this kind of level of mayoral capture. Like, I'm sure it happens, but like it just seems so egregious. Going on Facebook and all the other things behind it. It's really horrible. Can you tell us a little bit more about this mayor? Is there anything like, what's his history been like? What's he besides just a Musk henchman?
Oh, he loves posting selfies of him with Elon Musk. You can find him on his Instagram profile. He'll post Instagram status updates about how he's meeting with the Musk Foundation. He loves SpaceX. There's another city commissioner here who tweets at Elon Musk about how much she loves him. They really go out there to basically be social media editors for Elon Musk SpaceX.
Mm-hmm.
They drive Teslas. He promotes Tesla charging stations in the community. And the mayor, his day job is he's an attorney, and he also owns a pizza place downtown. Sorry, I think I forgot part of your question.
No, I think that's good enough. I was just curious, like, what else is going on in this guy's life that he can be so enthusiastic about Tesla or SpaceX. He sounds like the people that get in our comment sections, except he has
he has power, which is worrying.
Yeah. And
Exactly.
he made that initial post with my mugshot and my job, and saying that I'm anti-SpaceX, publicly announcing my arrest. And then he did a follow-up Facebook post just this past Wednesday where he says that he's investigating my arrest and that he'll support, any findings. Because I went public with how violently arrested, the violent arrest I experienced. And now he's claiming that he'll investigate this arrest. But also he refuses to drop the charge.
So, I mean, on that, there's some public calls to get these charges dropped. Can we direct people to any of those here?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a petition urging people that people can sign, urging the city of Brownsville to drop the charge and also to investigate Mayor Mendez for abuse of power.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I also have an online fundraiser if anyone wants to donate to my legal fees. Mike Siegel is my pro bono attorney, but I also have another attorney and other legal fees that I need to cover.
Well, absolutely. We'll keep those in the show notes below so people can find them. And I know that this has been a really shocking time, and I just have to commend you in your bravery and standing up against both of these forces. As we sort of close, would you mind just sort of letting us people know, particularly people who might be in the region and the area, how members of your community and the activist base have sort of been, organizing around this, and are there any kind of plans to sort of, use this moment and what is sort of brought to light, to sort of further draw attention to the kind of abuses of SpaceX and this massive gentrification project in Brownsville?
Yeah, I mean, it's daunting that we're, our community, which is one of the poorest ones in the country, is facing literally the richest on the earth. And one of the richest, wealthiest companies, and in his favor and in his pocket. It's daunting. We're working in a coalition together, speaking out to the Federal Aviation Administration, speaking out to any regulatory agency involved with SpaceX. There's also a tribe here called the Carrizo Comacrudo tribe that's been speaking about sacred lands and sacred sites, facing destruction from SpaceX and other industry trying to move into our area. We're working hard, and we're building a movement, and people are actively calling out Mayor Mendez for his obvious abuse of power. Some of his 2 posts about me have hundreds of comments. A lot of people who are upset about the mural, upset about the mayor and the police department's obvious abuse towards me. We're doing all we can, the community.
Well, Bekah, I really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. We'll put the links to how people can help out with legal fees and sign the petition to show these folks that we are all watching, and we can't allow these kind of forces to take over and displace people out of their communities and their homes. And I'm really honored to be able to share a platform with you today, and thank you for all your work and onward.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.